Why do people hate? Why do people hate other people who are different? The reason for hate murder is unfathomable to reasonable minds, but it exists all the same. Annually, we pause to remember those who were insensibly killed just because they were transgender or simply because of bias against transgender people. This video was commissioned by Trans-Cendence International for the International Transgender Day of Remembrance 2016.
Transgender Day of Remembrance means that we recognize each and every person who has been murdered or has committed suicide in the past year. It means that we think about the contributions of those people and the things that we have lost because they are no longer here.
I went to my very first service 7 years ago, and that was before I had started my transition. My pastor at the time was a trans man. And the very first service I went to was so moving and so powerful. So after that first service, I made a vow to specifically the people who were murdered that year that I would do everything in my power to stop this from happening. Me as one person can't change anything, but me as one person can empower others to help change this, and we can do it together. We can stop this.
I know it's a day that we remember those who have passed because of being transgender, but to me it kind of means remembering those who have died because of the harassment of others, the unjust treatments, because we're humans too.
For me, this Day of Remembrance means that we're making progress in our struggle to recognize transgender people and reduce the judgment and make their lives better. It means that maybe in the future, my kids' kids, if they end up being transgender, won't have to deal with the same issues that my child does.
This Day of Remembrance means awareness.
It helps refresh my awareness of what it means to be transgender and how dangerous it can be.
Well, it reminds us that we're very vulnerable, that some people have a problem with us that's not based on anything rational or logical, but they just dislike us. And they sometimes express that in a very violent way.
It means bringing everyone together, bringing the community together, bringing everyone together to have silence for those who have lost their lives for this. Horrible people that just treat them like they're nothing and treat them like they don't mean anything. And I feel like today is the day that we need to reach out to those who don't know that, who don't know they do mean something.
To me, what it reminds me of is that this is the first year that we've been at war. One of the political parties has made this a platform a part of its party platform, discrimination against us. And these things kill us just as surely as did some of the bullets that killed people that we're remembering today.
Transgender Day of Remembrance does heighten my fear. It heightens my fear because I think of each person that I love and care about who are transgender or gender diverse, and I worry each and every time that the list comes out that someone I know might be on that list.
This day highlights the fear and the danger that I live my life in, but I do not succumb to the fear, and I'm aware of the potential danger.
This day does not heighten my fear. It helps remind me that I need to be more focused on being aware of my surroundings so that I am safe.
It doesn't heighten my fear, but it heightens my fear for our community. On an individual basis, it does not heighten my fear as a trans man. I can pretty much walk through the world. No one knows I'm trans. But our trans women, those are the ones that I specifically worry about, especially our trans women of color. They are the majority of the people that are murdered throughout the year around the world.
Although I'm sad for the loss that we're memorializing, the day in and of itself doesn't cause me fear.
The Transgender Day of Remembrance does not heighten my fear. For me, it's more about educating people that don't understand what transgender is or means or why people are transgender, rather than being about something more dark and depressing.
Honestly, this day of remembrance does heighten my fear. It's terrifying seeing the numbers online, seeing how many people have lost their lives just being themselves, how many people feel like they can't be themselves.
I'm not afraid of what happens to me. I accept whatever happens, but it does remind me, and it makes me afraid for other people in the community. I know how hard it can be, and the thought of those things happening to others terrifies me.
Transgender Day of Remembrance does give me hope. It gives me hope that someday all the voices that we are losing won't be lost, that more and more we will affect change in our country so that it won't happen as much as it does today.
The Day of Remembrance does give me hope for positive change. Just seeing everyone strive to be together, like watching our group, the Trans-Cendence group, get together and put so much together to make this Day of Remembrance something to remember.
The Transgender Day of Remembrance absolutely makes me hope for positive change. I think that this day of awareness and remembrance spurs on how much work we have to do.
Transgender Day of Remembrance makes me very hopeful because we are recognizing the transgender community. Yes, it is a very sad and solemn day, but it's a day for us to remember these people and to remember the cause that they died for. They, in my eyes, they're martyrs for our cause and for our community. And I lift their spirits up as a call to action for us. I lift their names every year. I make a video every single year I have for the last 5 years that has every single name of every individual that's killed throughout the year, because we need to remember them. We need to remember why they died, and we need to stop it.
This day does create hope through the awareness that it brings about, not only with the transgender community, but also with their allies and significant others.
Yes, this day gives me hope for positive change. I see the community around me. I see very diverse people coming together. It does give me hope.
Makes me very hopeful for positive change. I feel like the transgender community is following in the footsteps of the lesbian and gay community, and that maybe we're just about a decade behind. And so I feel hopeful that as we bring more awareness to the transgender community, that we will find the same acceptance that the gay and lesbian community has found.
I've always been hopeful for positive change, and this day kind of increases that a bit more, because yes, those who have passed do need remembrance, and if we remember those in the past that have died because of this, then history will hopefully not repeat itself as it has so many times before.
My personal safety, I'm concerned about it in a way that I never have been before in my life since my transition. Before my transition, I never owned a firearm. Now I go nowhere unarmed. There's always the fear that something could happen, or that maybe something even beyond my control, like I might need an ambulance or a medical professional, and if they discovered my transgender status, I don't know how that person might treat me, and I might literally be able to do nothing to protect myself in that situation.
I have never actually feared for my own safety. When I was first starting my transition, I feared I was scared a lot trying to go into men's restrooms. The restroom is the biggest fear that every transgender person will tell you.
I have felt fear because of Finn being transgender. Each and every time that he goes into a male restroom, I'm always standing outside and listening for his voice. I'm wondering if I'm going to hear him scream and need help. I'm always worried someone's going to attack him when he's in the restroom.
The public restroom is their biggest fear. So yeah, I feared for my life walking into a men's room. But that's the only time I've ever actually been afraid. I usually tend to blend in and get along with most folks.
I do fear for my safety, honestly. I do every time I go into a men's restroom without a binder on, because I can't go into a women's restroom. I'm too far into my transition. I can easily get noticed in a bathroom. I can easily, if I don't have my binder on, if I don't have my hair fixed in a certain way, if I don't wear, you know, certain clothes, I always worry that a man will notice and a man will say something or do something.
I've feared for my safety sometimes. I've heard a lot of bad stories. In particular, a friend of mine broke down and she was abducted from the roadside and taken, and when her assailant found out that she wasn't all the girl that he thought she was, it degenerated into torture. I'm very concerned that something like that could happen to me.
I have fear for my safety because I was transgender mostly near the beginning. Yes, I knew there were bad people out there who may want to hurt me, and I've heard so many stories of it that when I came out, I was really surprised and happy of all the people who were supporting me in this, who would back me up in anything I chose to do that wasn't harmful to myself or others.
I don't fear for Caleb's safety very much. He is part of a different generation than some of the older transgender community, and I feel like the younger generation is more accepting. He's come out at school, and while the kids aren't really embracing it, they're not really harassing him or bullying him about it. It seems as though the teachers at school are embracing it, and they're being very good examples for the kids in the class.
I have definitely feared for my safety because I am transgender. I've had people follow me around supermarkets and then follow me into the parking lot. I have had people follow me around malls. So yes, I have been definitely afraid.
I haven't feared for my life because I was transgender. I didn't really think that people were actually going to kill me because I was transgender, and I knew my mom and dad would protect me and everyone else would protect me as much as they could.
I am fortunate enough to have never been afraid for my life, but I was afraid of the possibilities of what could happen.
No, I've never felt for my own life personally. I do get a little afraid at our group meetings. I fear for my community safety at our meetings, just because, you know, those meetings are out in public, or the dates and the place are out in public.
I haven't feared for my life due to being transgender. I am very careful, and I try to be very aware of my surroundings and try not to get myself into bad situations.
I can't say that I have feared for my life, honestly. I've never been in an instant where I was scared I was going to die because of it.
Years ago, I did fear for my life. I was living in South Florida. I was brutally attacked in my own apartment, left for dead, and I managed to survive. Unfortunately, the case is still, it's a cold case, it's unsolved. But I look upon myself as being a survivor rather than a victim.
On one occasion in particular, the man who intended to rape me sought me out because I was in a place where one might reasonably expect to find a transgender woman. And as I closed up the building in an old industrial district, it was lonely and abandoned, I realized that he could do anything he wanted to me, and there was absolutely nothing I could do about it.
Knowing that people have been murdered or committed suicide because they're transgender or gender diverse affects me deeply. It makes me sad that so many voices have been lost, and it makes me mad that somebody would take someone's life just because they're transgender.
It's depressing. It's scary. It's something that nobody can really understand unless you are transgendered, unless you do deal with the changes and do deal with the looks, the questionable looks that you get all the time. And knowing that people are pushed to the point of committing suicide, people are pushed to the point of someone who doesn't understand actually wanting to commit murder over it. It's terrifying.
Knowing that people have been murdered because they're transgendered or lost their life due to suicide just saddens me deeply. At the Dallas Teen Pride, the organizers gave black balloons and with their name of the person that we lost attached to it, and there were a lot of balloons. It was just very sad. It was a very poignant reminder that that this happens a lot.
Knowing that people have been murdered or committed suicide because they're transgender makes me sad, and it makes me angry. Nobody should lose their life over being who they really are.
I can relate particularly to the people who have committed suicide, because before my transition, I attempted suicide. I know what it feels like to be so lonely and desperate and profoundly miserable beyond any description. And the thought of someone else going through that, usually alone, just breaks my heart, and it motivates me to do everything that I can humanly do in my community to try to make a difference and to try to help others who I don't want anyone else to feel what I felt ever again.
I personally know what it's like to be in the shoes of someone who wishes to kill themselves before, and it's not fun, so.
Knowing that people who are transgender have been murdered or committed suicide does increase my concern for Caleb. More on the committing suicide end of things, because he was very depressed before he came out, because he felt like he wasn't himself. And so I know that he struggled with some very dark thoughts and feeling like he didn't want to live. So for me, the committing suicide part is very real. But I feel like since he came out, that has just completely gone away. He's his authentic self now. He's living as he wants to live. And I think it's done a world of good for his outlook and his emotional stability.
The message that I would like to express on this day is that we shouldn't live in fear. We should be aware of what's going on around us. Make sure that we don't put ourselves in dangerous positions and places, but to live authentically.
What I would like to express on this Transgender Day of Remembrance are three things: love, hope, and compassion.
Just be yourself. Be confident in who you are. Don't let anyone else change that. Don't let anything else change that. Be proud of who you are, stand up for yourself, and be happy.
Particularly to young people, but to everyone, to not give up hope. That, yeah, things are hard right now, and yes, there are people who don't like us very much. Things were worse in the past, though. Things will be better in the future. I'm confident of that. I'm certain of that. And so I would say to anyone who hears me, please do not give up hope, because you can live an authentic and real life, a life that has meaning beyond what most people can even begin to imagine. It really can happen, and it really will get better.
It's to spread your love, even if it's just to tell someone they look beautiful today, or just to say, hey, your shoes, your outfit looks really good. Don't let anyone feel bad about themselves. Always make someone feel great. No matter if you don't like them or not, just make them feel good, and you'll feel good about yourself.
I just want people to realize that we do matter. All people matter.
We are human beings, just like every other human being on this planet. We have kids, we have jobs, we have lives, we have homes, we work, we play, we have family, we have friends. So we are just like anybody else in this community, and we deserve every right as everyone else in this community. My message today goes out to the lawmakers that are trying to pass these bills that are discriminatory bills against the transgender community. These bills are part of the reason that our numbers are so high right now for the transgender community in murders and suicide. They rouse the people up against our community, just as it happened in the 50s and 60s and 40s against other minority communities. So my message is a message of solidarity and unity. And we need to work as a combined force. Transgender, LGB, allies, straight, it doesn't matter who you are. Please come and help us win this fight for our community before we lose any more lives.
The voices
Of trans people
And their contributions
To society,
Are being lost.
This
Must
Stop. On this Transgender Day of Remembrance, what I most want everyone to know, particularly those who are transgender or gender diverse, don't give up hope. Things will hopefully get better. We are working hard to make a difference in the world so that you can be who you really are. Who you are is important, and it matters.